Hello and welcome back to The Wrinkle. So I was covering the consultation service at the hospital today, and it was interesting because I had 2 consultation requests, and in both cases the question was, is this person safe to go home? And additionally, in both cases, the trigger for the question about safety was because there had been some wandering behavior. So the person, one lady got mixed up coming back from the bathroom in the middle of the night, went into someone else's room, actually got into one of the beds that was in the room, and was later found there in a spot where she wasn't supposed to be and was directed back to her room. In another case, this lady again had gotten up to use the bathroom in the middle of the night and had trouble finding the bathroom. So she ended up going into a different room and passing urine in a space that wasn't really meant for that, which then led to some challenges. And this lady needed a little bit of help to kind of get reorganized and get back to her room again. So these were behaviors that these 2 ladies had not had before they came into hospital. And so everyone was a little bit alarmed about why this was happening. And more importantly, what are we going to do to keep this person safe when they leave hospital? What would happen if this occurred in the community? What would we do? And maybe that means the person's not safe to go home and needs to go stay somewhere else. So the concept of safety is one that I try not to use very much in my work. I think it's really difficult to say that someone is completely safe to do something, to live alone or to travel or to make a decision about finances or assign power of attorney. It's really hard to say that someone is completely safe in all of those areas. There's also different kinds of safety, right? So we can have physical safety, but our emotional safety could be very compromised. So an example might be being in a restraint. Actually, it's arguable if restraints are physically safe, but suppose that there's a barrier so that somebody can't move as much, like a locked door. Well, that might make a person safe, they can't get out. But then it might not make the person spiritually safe because they might feel trapped or they might get very frightened or scared. So there's different kinds of safety, and who's to say that physical safety is more important than some other kind of safety? What I prefer to refer to in these situations is living with risk. We're all living with risk. We drive cars, we get on airplanes, some of us rollerblade or skydive. Not me. But, we do other things that are risky, but we make that decision. And if there's a dementia or a major neurocognitive disorder, like in these 2 individuals that I mentioned, you could argue that there's some compromise to the insight and the appreciation of risk, but we can still look at somebody's life history and determine whether or not they took some risks in their life, risks that they accepted as a trade-off for their own emotional and spiritual safety. And so just because someone has a major neurocognitive disorder doesn't mean that they are not entitled to live with some risk. So in the case of both of these individuals, first of all, we looked at why are people getting up to go pee in the middle of the night. Maybe there's a medical reason, something we could fix there. And then are there steps that we could take to reduce that risk? We can't reduce it to 0, but can we reduce it a little bit? And so we talked to the patients, we talked to the medical team and to the family members, and we came up with some ideas. So maybe we could put an alarm on the door. Maybe we could put some more lighting and signage around the bathrooms and the bedrooms so that it's easier to find those areas. Another thing we could do is have the person get a lifeline with a GPS so that if they do get lost, they could be tracked down pretty easily. When we talked about the concept of living with risk, recognizing that there was some risk and some risk is acceptable, and then finding ways to reduce that risk, then it was a little bit easier for people to agree that it's reasonable for these 2 individuals to go back to their homes and live with risk in some areas, but safety in some other areas that are equally important. So maybe you could think a little bit about how you're living with risk and what that means to you and what safety and security means to you. I would love to hear some of your thoughts about these topics, so please share them below. And I'll see you next time on The Wrinkle.